joined this hour by Gina Duran, who is a fantastic poet, um, fine artist, painter. I'm just gonna tell you all about it. Workshop leader. But first, Gina, can you open us up with a poem?
Oh, sure. I'll just read it from here because my computer's being weird.
It's that quarantine life.
Everything. Yeah.
Quarantine everything.
Okay, so this one is from And So the Wind Was Born, which I wrote for my capstone project at Pitzer College. And I essentially use dream-like qualities, magic realism, surrealism to help tell my story because there was other characters and I didn't want to be like explicit. I wanted people to feel more like questioning what was real and what wasn't real, and protect the anonymity of my other people who I developed as characters, and so everyone becomes wind. Okay, and this one is called "Born from Amnesis." The air is still as a pulsating heart pounds inside the wind, blood circulating like a tornado, writhing in the abdomen of a beast. Yet externally, it is silent as a force of gossip plunders landscapes. The earth concaves and vexes with imprints of the violence upon her body, like her mother before her, with uncle's hands, big or small, friction in the ropes, bound to the memories. Friction under a young man's hands, with her legs pried open as the darkening vastly spreads, tectonic plates rubbing rigidly in turmoil, red earth rising up, while the dreams of family lay piled within splintered rocks. Now she is he, and he is she, rooted to clay and stone, bound by amnesis, covered in air, covered in mud, stagnant in stasis. Waves of blue flow through, swaying across the concrete floor to find the tornado churning, captured in a well of stomach acids with its youth. Naked, naked and redacted from cognizance, black tape across the gaping truth. But the erosion of its force is fierce, its rage imperils its vessel, pulsating through the boundaries of family secrets in gale, a gale wreaking havoc, meeting up with a force more powerful than itself, a love of waves birthing whirlwinds and windstorms, clenching the tool to release the ferocity looming in the corner, dressed as a rainbow before the rain. Forgetting the wind knocked from its lungs was once an updraft of bellowing breath. Before it circulated in animosity and despair, sublimating rage. Before the crystallized contents of its tears deposited in a downdraft of heated memories, infusing the tropopause of its phantom psyche which nurtured chaos, its nurtured chaos which nourished childhood, stagnant, musty air rising in a whisper from the cartilage of its throat. Its eyes transfixed as spectators gathered, swaying waves forced static memories from the hollowed womb of the wind, laboring the tornado through the strained and stained mud of its ancestors. Its muscles relaxed in the familiarity of childhood bondage. Its muscles relaxed in the familiarity of familial bondage. The wind's thoughts grew rapid with its breath, heat waves entering the scarred tissue of its traumatized tropopause, shackled in a box cart with its tornado's great winds before it, where the debris of violators span across the landscape, colonizing its body, disassociating the wind from its home, searching for a sense of belonging in a place it has always belonged, the body it inhabits, the land where golden poppies bloom, where ice becomes a fog too thick to pass and people snow sled across the sands. They are all of the wind and more. And more. It released itself from its twisted ropes, both unveiling and retching its existence, gusting as a gale, passing before a stammered crowd. Only a few caught its gaze. The air escaped its vessel, circulating out of its confined space. An aeolian process freeing the remnants. Waves of light and air escaped where a heart once was housed. Perhaps it was the wind. Perhaps it was the waves, a blue that split over the cracks of the soiled and stained earth, that bore witness to the suffering that connected the wind to every aspect to its new life. Perhaps the wind was always a tornado, or perhaps the wind needed to meet itself outside of its dormant walls, to clear falsities in its path, to destroy ideals stored in the tissues of its past, and wash over it with love, and wash over me with love. Maybe she freed the wind, or maybe the wind was silenced air, waiting to escape so I could see that I am a tornado, a hurricane, and a sandstorm. But I am also breath and radiating particles of a child born on the marina, held in the arms of a woman who suffered abuse like mine, who named me after a ray of light. I am the infant laughing in the seafoam sky as her father lifts her towards the clouds. I am the person that is both he and she, who loves a woman who both frees and shatters my heart each time we kiss. I am the rainbow and reflection and refraction of myself. I am the red earth of my ancestors, waiting to be shaped. I am the wind talker listening for the wind's harmony, as it smooths out anvils in the sky, pulling clouds closer to the earth, reminding my toes they are touching the tile, that she is lounging amongst the tiles of a puzzled heart, her golden hair cascading down her blue jean jacket. I am here. I am here eating avocado toast in the backyard patio, watching the chickens cluck and play. I am here. I am here to hold her when she feels broken. I am here to kiss her eyelids when the wind is spinning round, sending her somewhere deep, where she dissipates like condensation of warm breath on a brisk winter's night, when she hides in the well of her memories, where she huddles with the tears of her little girl self. I am the person waiting to hold the girl who is stuck at the bottom of the well of her past. I am the one holding my hand, waiting for her to grab on. I am waiting for her to see her power. I am waiting for her to see she is the wind, so that she will free herself, and I will climb down in the tenebrous well to sit with her until she does. Thank you.
Wow, it's incredible. I can't help but
Kind of
ask.
long.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, wow.
Thank you.
I can't help but wonder where are you located right now? What was I see these paintings behind you? Is that your
I'm
home?
at the DAW.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're at the Dow Center for the Arts. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
wondering, like,
teaching, so, and my Wi-Fi was crazy, so they allowed me to come here and teach my classes.
yeah. So you led a number of workshops there at the DAW with the literary program, of which we are co-directors. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stuff we put on there?
As an art leader or as a literary director?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Just tell the good people about the Dow Center for the Arts. Yeah.
Okay, so the DAW Center of the Arts is a place for art, and that includes like all the arts. Like there's dance classes here. There have been dance movement and music classes that I've taught for special education students, as well as art classes for senior citizens, and I've taught classes for those too, like painting and plant making, like planter making and, painting and, little crafty type things. And then there's also classes downstairs where they have drawing, figure drawing courses. And then I think there's also some other things like I've taught with Brian Sonia Wallace, who's the rent poet, up in the upper loft. I've taught a couple classes with him actually. For the youth, for my group, which is focuses on LGBTQ youth and homeless youth, foster youth, low-income youth. And then we also have had some poetry classes, art classes, and I've taught other poetry classes here that are with, I'm trying to remember some other organizations that come in and out once in a while that are usually for foster youth and low-income youth, and also open to the community. And then other things we've done together, I think have mostly been like just as literary directors, as trying to get people to come in for poetry and writing, because a lot of people aren't aware that we do poetry and writing. I think that now, since you've been here, people are more aware of that, and which is really great. You know, you and I did a little piece together, where we had the poem printed up on the wall, up above us, and then we kind of did a live performance for everybody. That was really fun.
Yeah.
So the DAW actually has like so many types of things. I think they also have music and dance classes and even theater classes, which is great. And as a art leader, I'm constantly sent out to other schools, such as for the Pomona School District, such as Simons is one of the schools that I taught today. And I've been to several other schools just all around. It's kind of like
Yeah.
for summer programs and crafts and things like that.
Is that through the Locals and Legends program, or is that the?
So there's a art club and there is a Locals and Legends, but this one was for 6, 7, 8 is what
Oh,
it
okay,
is, because
okay,
it's sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. Yeah, 6, 7, 8 art club is what they call it.
yeah. We got so many different things going on all
I
at
know
once.
there's so many things,
There's
like
so many
and then
different.
I'm supposed to like remember all the names of everything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember them either, so I mean, maybe a little unfair of me to put you on the spot like that. So I want to get into some of the stuff you were talking about, in terms of the workshops that you lead, both there at the DAW and through the IE Hope Collective. But first, I want to get into you as a poet and talk about some of your background as a poet. So you have been a student at Pitzer. You're attaining your master's or at Pitzer's, correct? Or
I have two
you have
degrees.
your master's.
Yeah, I graduated already last year.
Congratulations!
Thank
I
you. Yeah,
think I knew that, but it's all blurry now.
so I was a double major, and I got a degree in English and World Literature, creative writing, and a degree in studio art. And I also have two AAs. One of them is a ceramic arts studio, and the other is in liberal arts and science. But I also have 8 certifications. So it's kind of like, do you really want to know what all those are? It's like yoga, massage, but the more important ones I feel are the community health worker. And because I worked with the LGBTQ community, which is one of the reasons why I developed the IE Hope Collective, from being an organization that helped the homeless living on the streets. So I would go to Skid Row and to parks in Muscoy, Redlands, I'm trying to think, San Bernardino, pretty much all over San Bernardino County, because San Bernardino County at the time was the second highest homeless population, and I believe we're climbing to number one, which is really sad. So a lot of Latino community happens to be affected by that, particularly immigration. And I have gone to Mexico to also help refugees, child refugees preferably, because I'm the one who works with the kids, brings the art to them to help give them something, hope. And not that you can really bring much to somebody in that situation. So I do something where, with the I Hope Collective, is basically focusing on empathy, introspection, community building, and coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a refugee and you have pretty much nothing, and you're camping out in tents in a church or other types of grounds, wherever they put them, and they're at very high risk of tuberculosis and other respiratory diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really the only thing you can do is just give them coping skills because I'm not rich. So, that's the next best thing I can do that I can give.
Right. So right now you're talking about kind of the what the group does, right? So what the aims and goals of the organization are. I'm kind of interested also at talking a little bit about the how. So like what are some of the techniques, and because a lot of your workshops are very multidisciplinary. They're not just straight poetry, not just straight dance, not just so how do you combine these multiple disciplines that you are involved in?
Okay. So I have a big, I don't know where I really started, to be honest, but I always say something like, oh, I started here in painting. I started here in theater. Okay, so I've done like, if it's art, I've done it. Like, I also have a background in TV production. And I even was in a talk show host. I was a talk show host for the city of Fontana on a local TV station, and I even did commercials. So yeah, I've done a lot of artsy type things. And so what I do, because I also have a background in psychology, because I do art for therapy, and that's my main goal, is to get my master's in art therapy. But you have to kind of do both. You have to do art and you have to do psychology. So it's been a very long road. And I also have a background in criminal justice, because that's where I started, was psychology and criminal justice. And I also have a lot of background in child development. So I've been in school for a very long time. And I'm tired. So I took a year off. Actually, it's a year and a half now. I was like, it's going to be a year. Now it's almost 2. So like everyone's sheltering in place, I was already there.
So walk us through one of these workshops though. When you do your poetry workshop, when you combine it with movement, what does it look like for our audience? Can I tell our audience a little about that?
So what I do is I like to look for artists out there in the world, especially people like you, Matt. And I'm like, hey, who are these guys, these great activists who are artists at the same time? And whether it be poetry or theater or visual arts and performance arts, and I like to see what they have for me, like, and to combine our ideas. So I get their ideas and my ideas, and we just kind of mesh it all together, and with very particular things in mind: empathy, introspection, and community building. So I feel like, because of my psychology background, I feel like that's really important. And I think art does that already. Those are the things that you learn as an artist or as a poet, as a creative writer, are to look at the world around you, just the bigger picture. Instead of just saying, hey, this is my world, I'm just so consumed with myself. And that BS about self-love. I do believe in self-love, but I also feel like that's kind of like, it kind of gets overblown. I'm also a yoga teacher, so you would think like I'd be all about that. But I'm not. I feel like self-love is more so about loving the community, and that we are all interconnected. And my love for you is also my love for me. And my love for the homeless person on the street is loving myself as well. So I want people to learn that. And I feel like these are things that are missing in our communities. And why there's so much focus on prejudice. I mean, why people have such racist ideals. Like, I feel like if they sat down and they saw what was happening inside to one another, and they actually realized that their hate for another person
Mm-hmm.
was also hating on themselves, I think that they would kind of rethink all those prejudiced views. Yeah, my belief is that we're only as strong as the people who are like ill, and they're at their worst point. Those are the people we're supposed to be lifting up.
Yeah.
So
I
I try and do that.
I
Sorry.
tend to agree with you when you talk about self love. I think people take it to a level where they become kind of like emotional libertarians. Like, it goes beyond. If you don't love the community as well, we have self love, but we also love others. I mean, that's a part they seem to forget. You
Yeah.
mentioned art therapy. This is going to be seen by a wide cross section of people. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what art therapy is?
Okay, so I'm still learning, but art therapy will, it actually has it's a very broad term actually, because so music and movement would be considered art therapy for the one that the doll has, where we're dancing with special education students, because you're learning your motor skills and you're also learning how to express yourself emotionally and physically. So learning motor skills is one of the things that art therapy is used for. So if you're having issues with your like cutting with scissors, you want to make art, and you're having issues with writing, you would learn how to paint and how to draw, and fun ways to strengthen the hand to gain motor skills. Then there's art therapy that is more expressive of your emotional state, and even that differs because an art therapist could look at your art and say, oh, you're feeling depressed because I looked at the way you did these strokes. But then there's also art therapy where if you're suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, and studies have shown that if you, when doing paintings, you can actually have recall from memories that were lost through art. So they regain the memory through painting. And so this is a skill that they use for people dealing with Alzheimer's. And my grandmother has Alzheimer's. So that's actually something that really fascinates me. And then there's the kind of art therapy that we kind of do, which is teaching the person how to look deeper in themselves and how to bring that out and express it emotionally. Because a lot of times when you're dealing with abuse, you kind of get all trapped in yourself and you're incapable of expressing yourself. And that's really important to learn how to vocalize the way you feel, and how to communicate, which is why it's really important to learn community building, and why empathy is very important, and why introspection is also very important, because you have to look into yourself too. You can't just look out and just be like, hey, I love everybody and I'm only going to help everybody, but never
Right.
focus in on yourself too, and notice how you're helping people, because sometimes you can be helping them from a toxic place and not even be aware of that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's very broad.
Yeah. So Jesse says thank you for your work with the refugees, brothers and sisters. So it's
Thank
a nice
you.
comment. Um, yeah. So you have another poem to share with us?
Do I have another poem to share?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can pull that up real quick. I was trying to pull it up. This one. Well, hang on. I
Oh, I thought the poem
apologize.
started. They're like, well,
That was quick. I read that so quickly.
yeah.
Okay, here we go. I have this one that just pulled up. Okay, I'll read this. Moving air. Cher mon cœur, I am an Aquarius, an air sign, born the year of the dragon, a fire dragon to be exact, and a pitta in Ayurveda. What does all this even mean? That I am a strong force of fire and air constantly moving? Or I'll die? I don't know. I'm not even sure if I believe in any of this shit. I know that heart chakra and the anahata is air, and that when the wind begins whirling like the wings of a hummingbird, you're always near. I know that as we dance on textured streams of the aurora borealis under a clear violet sky invisible to our eyes, that our skin is the scent of red earth. As I as I pick the ground up, digging up my clay to prepare my to pre- sorry, to prepare my gift in solace to my hollowed Shadistana, I feel like I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I am safe in your arms. But when I birthed my ghost, the doctors held its diseased tissue in their hands, then announced its death, naming it endometriosis, and I was happy to never hold her in my arms. 2 years later, a healer put me on her table under an orange sun when she told me that I never mourned the loss of my uterus. I felt that was ridiculous, but the silent air became a breeze, and I saw white gold in my dreams as she placed her hands on my head. So I went home and wrote my uterus a letter. I received womb therapy several times, triggering the movement of memories streaming down my cheekbones after the healing hands dug deep into my sunken well. She pulled out my ghost's remains and forced me to see her pain and had me write myself a love letter. Those words moved like the limbs of trees creaking and cracking in the wind. My ghost left me with the remnants of her nightmares inhumed in the lining of my uterus. Though sometimes I wonder if all the pain I carry is even mine. Sometimes I wonder if the disease lives in my DNA. Maybe my ghosts are my ancestors searching for peace in the clay of my vessel, molding me from the inside out. Maybe I am coded like a monarch butterfly, destined to follow the plan of her ancestors. But I wouldn't even know what that means, because all I have are their stories traveling from my superior vena cava. I am a code etched in the mitochondria going towards my destiny. I am an indigenous American without a community, separated from my cultures, unsure where I belong. I don't know of my borderlands or speak the multiple languages of my people, like the new mestiza Gloria Anzaldúa traversed the empowerment of her indigeneity, the flex of her bilinguality, and beauty and strength of her cunt. That doesn't mean I'm not a new mestiza. It means my indigenous Chicanx grandparents were beaten for speaking words of farmhands and chattel slaves and people that smelt of the red earth hidden in the calluses of their hands and feet. It means I had a great grandmother who was enslaved and kept in a boxcar. I'm curious of the stories of the people before them, the ones who shared the myths of the earth. Sometimes I feel the air moving across the hairs of my arms, and I know the wind is whispering a truth. I don't know if my ancestors spoke of the wind. I don't know if they understood the language of a tree taught to them by saltwater fish like the surem. I don't know if they had prophetic warnings of colonizers or art made with beads or sealskin. I don't know if they lived in ancient cities, teepees, or igloos. I know haplogroups C1b, QM3, and A2J1. Locations of origins, not cultures or beliefs or tales of the wind speaking through the leaves. So I'll climb in the tree and listen for your story. Or maybe the wind is coming from my anahata, waiting to speak to other hearts, rambling an unintelligible garble, searching for ones who speak its language. Maybe your anahata is the only one whose wind knows its song. I sometimes wonder if your heart aches when I question if anyone loves me. Perhaps there was never a question, only fear of not belonging on soil that has always been my home. Maybe I feel abandoned, or at least I did before I sat near the cornfields listening to the cicada scream, while watching the flicker of glowing insects rising up from the lush green grass. Maybe as I sat in the solitude peeling the rind from my orange, watching the specks of juice sputter into the air, filling up the room with its aroma, and watching the juice drip from the knuckles onto the pressed wood of my dorm room desk, I contemplated the suffering that created me. Maybe I finally left my need to research their pain and the why of the how I ended up in the hospital bed. I read the words of Maya Angelou and cried about belonging. I cried about the double rainbow I saw crossing through the red canyons of the Hopi people before I dropped off my daughter, somewhere deep in the woods across the country, far from all her people, but only 4 hours from my desk. I cried because the part of me that was connected to her gone forever, and she doesn't even know. I cried part of me runs wild, trying to find herself, searching for healing and belonging just as I do. Part of me wants to heal because she witnessed my suffering and can't look back, and I can't blame her. Then there is the wind of me who pushes the memories and tells me to keep moving forward, or I will die. I know now that as the wind, I belong everywhere and nowhere, over all landscapes, beyond the leaves of the trees and the curls of your hair. I belong every place, no place at all. So I fell in love with this vessel and carved the words into my limbs. When I look at my reflection, I see the women who created me, women much stronger than I could ever be. I see women educated by the wind by their abuelitas, who taught them to knead masa and soak corn husks like mine taught me. I see the curls of my black hair, curves of my almond eyes, and the dip at the end of my nose. And I know that I am from more than California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Alaska. I am from everywhere and nowhere. I am from wherever I want to be. That's it.
So you wrote a lot in this poem about kind of wrestling with identity, which is a topic that so many poets from our community write about because of history.
Yeah.
Because it seems like we all go through this, like it's a very bizarre process because I feel like we all, like, even though it's part of our community, we all end up doing it like almost as individually. Like there's not like we like individually go through this. Like we discover this on our own. Like we discover it through each other and read each other's works, but like it's like a very individual process of like, what am I? And this thing that seems to happen to all of us, some earlier, some later, but nobody gets out without staring at the unevenness of their complexion and wondering why.
Why aren't
Um,
I dark, or why is my hair this specific color?
why are my hands darker than my face? And why is my complexion so like uneven? Yeah. But you mentioned a lot about landscapes. You mentioned different parts of the Western Hemisphere. Different. But one image that really struck me, and I want to ask you about the significance it has to you, because it's an image that pops up in a lot of poetry around these topics. The question of the monarch butterfly. What does the monarch butterfly mean to you?
Well, the monarch butterfly actually travels from Mexico to Canada and back from Canada to Mexico. Um, I also noticed that recently Reina Grande happens to talk a lot about the monarch butterfly, which has to do with immigration. And I had already written a poem a long time ago, back in 2007, about the monarch butterflies, and I kind of wanted to revisit that. But I also do like the idea of how it represents immigration. Um, so I wanted to kind of revisit that in that way. The monarch butterfly has a pattern that is ingrained in its DNA. So it knows exactly how to get to Canada from Mexico and back home again. It's a map that's imprinted in its body. And Native Americans often believe, not all Native Americans, but a lot of Native Americans have a similar theory about our DNA having essentially like a map, or like a know-how printed in our DNA, telling us what to do and how to do it. And that's a strong belief within several indigenous communities. So I wanted to also look at it that way, like about the stories are already written in me. They already exist. And I've read some stories even about some Native American people who lived in Alaska, I believe. And I found it so fascinating because I did so many things the way these particular Native American people did, and I thought it was so strange, like the way that they moved away from unhealthy relationships, and like the way their thought processes were. And I found that to be very interesting. Like, how is it that I had so many things in common with these people who I'd never met? And I'm like, I had to be related. Like, that's all I could think, because one of the I'm three different types of Native American, and one of them are actually like a cousin to Inuit. And so I found that to be very interesting because this happened to be a woman that was related to Inuit. And so I was kind of like that. I was related to this person. I don't know. It's just me fantasizing about it, thinking about my DNA having some kind of story in it that told me how to do things, that my ancestors were telling me how to do things.
So tracing back to some of your Mexican ancestry, you were told something not long ago by your grandmother that was like is a huge revelation. Was it not? Am I getting that story right?
Which
Like you had
which
a
which
tattoo? Like you had a tattoo or something like that, and then like it ties back to the
Okay. Well, that was actually through my son, but yes, it's related to my grandmother because my grandmother is well, I'll say Nahuatl because if she's Nahuatl, then she can also be Aztec because Aztecs are also Nahuatl. And when you look at the area of that she lived in, is more than likely she was, or sorry, is Aztec. She's still here. Um, but most of my family who's from that same family all lives in this same area of California, all along the areas of which the Aztec live. So more than likely she's Aztec. And so some of her family also was from Mexico, and they decided to go back. But anyway, Aztecs believe that hummingbirds, and I have the hummingbirds all the way up my arm, right? So, wait, this is the belonging poem, but right here is, if I could get that in there. I don't know if you
that's
can.
never how many members are
That's good
down
enough.
here.
It wraps all the way around the arm. And okay, so I recently found out that hummingbirds represent um, the souls that die of warriors that come back, and they fly around the sun god, and which Huitzilopochtli. I think I said that correctly, and if I didn't, I'm sorry. um,
We're all
um,
trying. We're all trying. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I thought that was really cool that they just happen to be these warriors that come back, and I got them because my godmother had passed away, and I was just like kind of like focusing on what would my spirit animal be around that time, and I just happened to get all these hummingbirds on me, so I thought that was kind of cool. And it also is on the left side, which is where the warriors fly. On the side of the sun god is on the
Yeah.
left side.
Yeah. So we'll drop all the links below. What are some things people need to know about you? How can they follow up with you? Where can they find you? How can they support the IE Hope Collective? And yeah, final words.
So ways that they can support the IE Hope Collective would be to volunteer and to probably look for workshops if you have a workshop opening, or looking for some artists to perform, or not perform, but teach and perform basically. To go ahead and look us up at IE Hope Collective on Facebook and on Instagram. And of course, I always am looking for artists to help, whether it be in poetry, creative writing, art, performance art, theater art. And then what was the other question?
Anything else you want? Any other organizations you want to give a shout out to, a plug, or?
Oh, thank you to the DAW, who's helped me in many, many ways and given me a place to perform. And to help other people. They've helped me with I Hope Collective lots of times here, and I'm trying to think. I don't really have anyone else. So there's lots of organizations that people can help. There's special education places that I'm looking at right now as well. And I think there's some other poetry places out there like Get Lit and things like that, organizations that can help the youth
Yeah.
aside from my organization. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you, Gina, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon.
yes, I will see you soon. Thank you so much for this interview, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Lots of love to you. Bye.